Kogi State police rescue 5 kidnapped victims in forests. And coming from the FCT, police detain corp over accidental discharge. These are the topics we are going to look into when we come back from this short break. Stay tuned. All right, we are glad to have you back on the show. On the show is Press Roundtable. My name is Angel. Welcome, popularly called Angelic Angel. And it is my pleasure to welcome on board. Also, he's a journalist, a media practitioner too. His name is Stanley Ahmadi, who is also a public affairs analyst. Stanley, good to have you today on the show. Honestly, it's my pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a while.
Honestly, it's been a while on the show. So I'm so happy that you're appearing again so that you make your inputs on the topics we really want to discuss. So first of all, we want to go to Imo State. Imo State Tribunal affirms Usodima's election as governor, dismisses LP's petition. The Imo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has affirmed the election of Hope Uzodinma as Imo State Governor. The tribunal gave its ruling in Abuja on Friday as it dismissed the petition of the Labour Party LP and its governorship candidate Athan Achono. In a unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Oluyemi Akintan Osadebe, the three-man panel of the tribunal held that Uzodinma Mass election as Imo State Governor complied substantially with the provisions of the Electoral Act. The tribunal further held that the Labour Party in its petition failed to prove the allegation of overvoting and non-compliance to the Electoral Act. Recall that the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC declared Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress APC as the winner of the November 11 governorship election in Imo State last year. Uzodinma scored 540,308 votes to defeat his closest challenger, Senator Samuel Anyanwu of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who scored 71,503 votes, while Achono came third with 64,081 votes, and other 15 candidates had up to 10,000 votes. Now, dissatisfied with the result, Achono had approached the court to sack the governor, alleging electoral malpractices in some parts of the state. And as you can see, that is Achono. You know, Achono was the one-time senator who really contested, and he felt that Hope Uzodinma did not really got the required vote, that every election that happened took place in November 11 was manipulated. So he went to the courts. Right now, they went to court. They went to tribunal. It was a whole lot. As a matter of fact, he said that his certificate should be withdrawn, that he is not qualified to be the governor of Imo State, and it was a whole lot of problem. A whole lot happened in the state. Some persons were polling from the APC then to join LP's party in order to, I don't know if you really follow that case. But later, a lot of persons were saying that Uzodinma is not going to be the governor anymore, that the certificate will be withdrawn, that they're in Abuja, and even some persons from the APC is now testifying against him that he is not qualified to be the governor of Imo State. But now we have the result that the tribunal has affirmed him as the governor of Imo State, so he's not going to be withheld. What can you say about that? Do you think that they really carried out a thorough investigation, saying that he really won that governorship election in November 11? What's your take on that?
When it comes to electoral processes, the tribunal is one of the first umpire that is actually used to checkmate the electoral malpractices, inconsistencies, and irregularities that might characterize the electoral process. And actually, when I saw this story developing today, I was, will I say, surprised, because I never knew too well that the issue of the governorship election for Imo State that took place since 11th November 2023 is still at the rate or at the state of tribunal, at the level of the tribunal when it comes to electoral petitions. And coming to realize that today, that the judgment was just passed today, I actually began to look at that direction. And just as you rightly said, you asked, once there is an election, there will always be aggrieved parties. And then, of course, regardless of what, the aggrieved party will definitely go, take redress in court. For electoral process in this case, they will start from the tribunal. And of course, whatever judgment that comes out of the tribunal, which is the first stage of it, you're going to have those that will still be satisfied with the judgment and those that will not. In this case, we know too well that who it favors would always say it's a justice for the common man, and then who it doesn't favor would always lament and would always threaten to, appeal further. And hence, this is actually the preliminary stage of this whole process. And it's going to be a battle, a tussle that will continue, as we have always known in the Nigerian electoral process, that they are going to follow through until it gets to the Supreme Court. And then my only question and my concern to that effect is, if the tribunal has taken this long, just at the tribunal level, by the time they exhaust the process through the appeal court down to the Supreme Court, would there actually be time left for this first tenure of Uzodinma, or for this tenure of Uzodinma to actually, for whatever judgment that would be coming in place? By then, the tenure, the 4 years tenure must have elapsed. So, of course, we know too well that the common challenge of electoral process or judicial system in Nigeria today is the fact that there is so much delay, delay in passing judgment, and delay in, the legal process. So the concerns of passing through these stages down to the appeal to the Supreme Court might likely see that even to the end of the tenure, there might not be a final verdict from the Supreme Court. We've seen that happen in the case of Governor Mba of Enugu State, in the case of the campaign, when the case was taken to the court that he does not stand, he stands to lose the seat. But you see that final judgment was actually passed when he has already left office. So these are common things that characterize. And when this came up, I was actually not seeing, this away or different from that same light. And of course, I wouldn't say it's a foul practice or malpractice of in the judicial system, but they actually knows, how they go about these things. And all we can actually call for or request at this point is that they expedite action when it comes to, addressing aggrieved parties in any issue, especially when it comes to electoral process and the mandate of the people.
All right. So what can you say in respect to these, and then what happens during election? Do you think that Nigeria is actually conducting a credible and fair election?
At this point, I wouldn't say we have actually gotten there. Nigeria,
okay.
Of course, we can't say we are conducting credible and fair election.
Okay.
there are parameters, there are factors who can actually be used as a yardstick to determine how credible elections are. And one of these is actually the issues of petitions and tribunals and, you know, people running to the court to, you know, express their grievance and dissatisfaction over the electoral process. When there are dissatisfaction in an electoral process, it simply means that something is still wrong somewhere. You know, things are not done properly. And then we've seen in the Western world where when elections are being carried out, you have no ground, you have no reason to doubt the credibility of it. Why? Because it is completely 100% digitalized. It is 100% transmitted from the point of vote to the central, you know, to the central collecting point, where while votes are going on individually, there is, you know, it's being collated. There is a digital, you know, presentation of the votes as it is counting, as it is going on. So people do not have any opportunity to begin to, you know, think about how to rig the elections, how to carry out some malpractices, and how to do some foul play. You know, this we've seen cases where people sit in their homes without even going out to any point in the name of voting to carry out elections, to vote, you know, with you know, imputing their system, their data to the electoral system, and, you know, choosing their candidate to vote, and it reflects. We see it reflect at the server and all that. So we have a long way to go. And trust you me, if Nigeria wants to get it right, they know what to do. The mechanisms are there, the technocrats are there, the expertise are there, the human personnel are there. Everything that is needed. It is just, you know, having that will, that intentionality to get it right and to kill the art of corruption in our electoral system.
All right, I think that's a very good one. A quick one now. We want to look at the final year students that committed suicide just for failing one cause. Okay, a final year student of Ebonyi State University, EBSU Abakaliki, simply identified as Miss Favor Uguka, has reportedly committed suicide. Media reports show that the deceased committed suicide in her hostel at the Ishioke campus of the university in Abakaliki, Ebonyi State. Further, English language, passed all her courses, but repeatedly failed a particular course whose lecturer had vowed she would never pass. In a melancholic video seen online by media report, a woman said to be the deceased mother blamed the lecturer for making her daughter commit suicide. According to the woman who was seen lamenting in the video, Dr. Eni said he is the best, that nobody can teach like him. He should come and carry my daughter who has committed suicide. Also, a graduate of the institution who identified himself as Resk Nwome claimed that the girl committed suicide because she had been failing that particular course. And he said, Favor was my classmate and a best friend to me in the English department. The above mentioned lecturer did vow never to allow Favor to graduate. You could imagine where she later passed all the courses except that of the lecturer. She had to pay another extra year's tuition fee to rewrite the course. Unfortunately, the man failed her again. What resulted in this intense depression is the latest NYSC names that were recently shortlisted, and her name wasn't there. He added the girl suffered a lot of depression because she was only left wandering about in EBSU seeking for help. She was very desperate to graduate and serve. These and many more of the disgusting stories resulted in the suicide mission. And of course, you can see that, I don't know if you're saying that's the lecturer, and also the girl. This is quite pathetic, coming from this young girl who is not just up to 30 years, who is, and she's been quite described as a brilliant child in the school, in the English department, that this lecturer has vowed that she will never see her graduate. You know, being frustrating her movement, frustrating her academic and, you know, pursuit and all of that, because they said that she passes all of her subjects. Yeah. And now, what can you say about this? This is really, I don't know. It's so painful. And yes, it's quite painful to the heart, because if I happen to be the mother or it's related to me, you know how you feel when someone is just making your life miserable in the school.
It's actually a very painful experience. It's a
Yes.
painful situation. And then trying to analyze, you know what it is. This is actually our final year, not just a final year. It is our final exams. In fact, not just a repeat of an extra year, just because of that singular cause. And then, you know, these things are not far-fetched from our universities. And it's unfortunate that our universities are also not doing enough to, you know, nip these things in the bud. They are not doing enough to watch out for the students' welfare. They are not doing enough to, you know, live up to that reality, to know too well that, yes, there are lecturers that are actually, you know, not who they pretend to be as lecturers in the school. There are lecturers that are predators, you know, predators of the students they are to teach, you know, for one reason or the other. We've had, you know, when you begin to talk about campus report, we've had series of unpalatable and ugly, you know, stories and incidents that involve lecturers and students when it comes to victimization. And this, of course, is another case of such numerous incidents. And from all narratives we have in this story, we'll discover and we see a lady that from testimonials, she's outstanding. She's, you know, a bright student. And then a backup to that, a fact check to that is the fact that this lady has not had any carryover, not any carryover per se in any course. Is clearly in a very outstanding, you know, record with every other courses, but happened to fail a particular course repeatedly. You know, from maybe we wouldn't know when this happened if it was just her final year course, or we have had situation where students happen to also, you know, carry over a particular course, even almost from their year one to their final year, to even after graduating a particular course, bring them back. Meanwhile, they have passed and they'll be passing other courses. It's unfortunate too that in the midst of all this, there was no mechanism, there was no body set up to, you know, monitor such situations and cases, you know, where the student could have actually easily and reported or presented his or her plight at that point, and due diligence taken to ascertain and to investigate the situation without the student actually being, you know, a victim of lecturers. Because most of the times students who pass through this situation, not because they do not want to actually speak up, not because they do not want to take measures on action, but because of the fact that there is a networking, you know, among these lecturers when it comes to victimizing, you know, students who try to bring to bear the ugly scenarios or, you know, advances or whatever situations that has been the order of the day or their experience. So most of them try to keep mute if they do not choose to, you know, compromise over such situations. So in this case, it's a pathetic situation. It's an extreme one. Why? Because it took her to a point of being depressed, where, you know, the final stage of being depression is taking, you know, contemplation of
suicide.
You know, suicide, which even beyond contemplation, she acted on it. And then there has been a lot of indications too. Before somebody gets to that point, when if such a person have people around him or her, is always going to be observed, and all those around her never took notice or took any effort to actually, you know, come to her aid too, from the school environment to family and to all that. She was left in a world of her own, you know, to wallow and, you know, experience such bitterness. You can imagine a situation where your colleagues, your classmates, and all those, you know, you were in same level with have actually all graduated. They have gone for service, and you are actually the only one repeating and coming over, moving about the campus just to sort yourself out over issues you know ordinarily you are not supposed to be, you know, having such an issue. That's what brought her to the point where she is.
What do you think? It's quite painful, like I said earlier. What do you think should be done to this lecturer who has vowed never to see her graduate?
You know, I followed up the development of this story even beyond this point, where the lecturer has actually come to refute
Okay.
the fact that he was not responsible for the lady's death. Of course, in such situation, it now deals with life and death. You never expect the person in the picture in question to take responsibility of such an action. In fact, there will be a sharp practice to even cover his or her track. So in that now, what is actually necessary to be done is for the necessary and relevant bodies to be set up to investigate and follow up this matter, to a very conclusive end. Bodies by the institutions, committees or disciplinary body, committees should be set up by the institution to follow it up to the latter, and away from what the university body would be doing, the relevant agencies and security bodies should actually also wedge in. Civil societies and other advocate groups should actually wedge into this situation to make sure that they follow up this case and this matter to a very conclusive, and that is the only point where you can say whatever the institution will actually be doing to make sure that the case is being investigated is done with every sense of credibility. Without that, there is always going to be a mind of protecting an image in the part of the institution. There will always be a mind of protecting a colleague, a member, a staff member, by some member of whatever team or committee that is actually constituted. So it's not something that should be left for the institution alone to carry out investigation at this point, but every relevant agencies and bodies should actually step in.
Yeah, to carry out proper investigation,
yes,
to
exactly.
ascertain what really actually happened,
yeah.
and maybe during the investigation they will look at their phone conversation if there's any, and then look at when you see the phone conversation, you see the reply, you see whatever that could really prove that either he may be wooing the girl and she may have refused and said that she wouldn't want to have any amorous relationship with him, and that could lead to that. Because you see, recently we are noticing this, and we are really hearing this issues of sexual harassment coming from lecturers to students, and this is actually making some parents not to even send. I remember I had a discussion with a woman who said that what is actually happening in the university, that she wouldn't want her daughter to go there and be messed up with all these lecturers, when sometime the video emerged on the social media, when you saw I don't know if you watched that ugly video, when you saw a lecturer that went to mess up with a girl, and then he was videoed and uploaded on the social media. It was just a whole mess. And so because of that really happened, and the mother said that she wouldn't want to, and I was like, okay, all these things that are happening, will it now make you not to
deny your child of
that
education?
education. So it's now the duty of the parents to put their daughters through.
To guide through.
Exactly.
And supervise them to, why they're in the institution. As a parent, yes, you are in a society that is mixed up with different individuals and personality, that you can't totally say you want to shy away from any particular, situation. In fact, a bit of trying to do that, you might end up seeing yourself falling into a deeper, mayhem. So what you actually need to do in the part of the parents is to guide and counsel their
daughters,
their kids, their wards, their daughters, their children, especially from the primary down to the secondary, down to the university level. You still owe them a responsibility, and that is why you are the father, that is why you are the mother, that is why you are a guardian, to this person. They have never outgrown, you at any point, in as much as you are to their fees and all that. Your duty do not end at that point. You should actually, come to a point where you make them realize that they can confide in you and say things that they cannot say to any other person. If your child is going through something and they are finding it difficult to share with anybody and you're not aware of that situation, there is something wrong already. There is, a gap that is existing, between you and your kids. So that every parent should be intentional to see that this gap is being closed, build that friendship, break that wall, that barrier that is inhibiting or restricting communication. A father to a child, a parent to daughter to son discussion. You know, you make your child understand that, yes, you can be a multiple personality, you can play multiple personality role to them. You can play the role of a father, you can play the role of a teacher, you can play the role of a friend, you can play the role of a counselor, you can play the role of a pastor. And, you know, when they see you in that direction, at whatever point or situation they actually find themselves, they know too well that there is a part of you that can address that situation.
Exactly. Now, let me just go in another aspect. You know, there is another way that she can also, she could have achieved without without committing suicide.
Yeah.
Like, I know there are young ones in this university who are facing such a problem, and that they find it difficult to share with other people. But I think there is a solution to that. You have to speak up. When these things were going on, and you know you kept failing this particular cause, you know how bright you are, you know your capacity, you know your worth, you know you are not this person that take your studies on serious, then you have to speak up to the authorities. You meet the relevant authorities, they will now ask him, probably another person, another lecturer who handles that course will now look into the matter and check the question and the answers that the girl has been providing. Because the man can easily say, it's possible for him to say, no, she wasn't reading. You know, she wasn't reading.
I think
Yes.
from the man's statement, actually, in his defense, he actually said that the lady only copied 3 questions, not answered. Copied 3 questions into her script.
Yeah.
And when I was actually trying to go to, it's definitely going to be a defense. He's going to put up something. And what I looked at in that situation is even a possibility of where her script has actually been taken off and a pseudo script.
Okay.
Of that is now assumed to be her, you know, exam script would now be put up in whatever manner to express a level of poor performance. But of course, if there are committees and the relevant body following up on that, it's not just going to stop or end at whatever the man presents or says. Because first, this is an incident of repeated, you know, failure of this particular course, why that same student has never or has not failed any other course. So there are, in fact, if they want to get the truth and the reality out of it, there are a lot of indicators, there are a lot of pointers that will enable them, you know, realize or dig to the truth of this situation without even basing from what the man will be coming up to say. Because at this point now, the lady is not there to actually give a statement of what the issue is. And then, of course, to lend my voice to every other student out there, because this is just one out of so many.
Yes.
One out of countless that is there and that is still happening. And then, actually, as a student, part of why you're actually in school is to know your right from your left. Is actually to know the right measures and the right step to take per time. It's not just about the chemical engineering you're reading. It's not just about the literature, the literary and English studies or whatever you're doing. It is about your exposure. It's about your understanding of, you know, workability of things around you and how to get things done in the right perspective. And in this, when you're passing through situations and challenges, you need to speak up. That is one. It's an advocacy at this point. You need to speak up. And beyond speaking up, you actually need to take some measures and some actions that are within reasonable limit by bringing to the notice of relevant and necessary authorities. Your parents are actually authority, your guardians are authority. That is your first point of call before you begin to talk about the institution at this point. And even in the institution, it may be at the point where you are afraid of being victimized or being, you know, made public, where you can now become, you know, a target by other lecturers who are of the same cronies with or in synergy to whoever or whatever situation you're passing through. There are ways you channel it. There are lecturers that are actually hell-bent to making sure that the right measures, the right steps are being carried out. They're actually out there to look out for the well-being of students. You still have, out of everything, you still have 1 or 2 lecturers that are student-friendly. And they are ready to go all out to make sure that every report or issue that comes to their desk or to their table are being followed out. You identify such a person and such person, and away from whatever any person does, if you are sure of your person, if you are sure of your academic capabilities, your performance and the rest of it, a lecturer should not be failing you repeatedly, and you take it as your fate. We have had situations where lecturers, you know, result comes out, lecturer fails, students in particular courses, and they take it and own it up to the lecturer that they passed their course and call for their papers to actually be remarked. And at the end of the day, when panels are set up for a remarking, you see that those students actually did well in those courses. So if you know your stand, if you know your competence, if you know your credibility, you don't allow such a thing to happen. You don't allow yourself to be messed up in such manner. In fact, I'm talking about this from actually experience too. I've had personal experience, though not in the angle of being victimized at this point, but while in school, you know, yes, a lot of activity, but I happened to actually finish my studies in school without recording any carryover. But there is an incident that actually came up where I went to check my result, and I saw that what I was having, to my dismay, in that course was just 20 as a score. 20 as a score. When I saw it, I clearly told with every confidence, without a second thought, without missing word, that this is my CA score, which CA was 30. I told the lecturer that this is my, you know, it is a lecturer that others will not even open up, will not even be able to even utter a word, because they are just their course advisors. They don't even have much role to play. And what they see, they just accept it as their fate and move it. And why in my presence, people came to see to check their score, and people were scoring 12, 14 in over 100, and they took it that way as their course and move it. But I told this man that this 20 was actually my CA, and that my exam was not recorded. You know, when he actually saw my confidence and without missing word, he has no option than to actually reason with me in that same line. Of course, as my course advisor, he actually has the previous record of my performance and my results. So this put together, he was actually not the one that was preparing the best way to follow up. He referred me to meet the lecturer because he's only compiling what was sent to him. Though it took a very long time, almost a year, to actually follow up. But at the end of the day, that 20 happened to be my CS score.
Because you were very sure. You were very sure of what happened.
I was asking myself, what will I be doing? Out of
that
100,
will make you to score
I'll do
20.
My CA, I'll do my test, I'll write my exam, and then in it, or you say I'm coming up with 20. It's insane.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's unimaginable. So I told him clearly that this was my CA for the course. And that was actually what it happened. Over 30, my CA was 20. And at the end of the day, that course actually had a B in it. But it would have been something anybody would have settled for a carryover. So when you know your competence, when you know your competence, when you know too well that certain things cannot relate, do not relate when it comes to your performance and dress, so you follow it up to the later without fear and be courageous about it. Yes, because I saw it as not being possible going to sit for a carryover course.
Wow.
I never signed for it.
Honestly.
In fact, I was actually a coach and a mentor to a lot of persons. And I know the damage it would be for
you to
those
sit
persons
for a
to
carryover.
come see me sitting for a carryover in a course. I understood that. So I wasn't even looking at it in my own perspective or what it is to me. I was looking at the impact on others.
On others, how they will look at you.
On campus, and those that,
you advise
those
them,
that I'm advising, those that I'm coaching
them.
I've had actually to draw out a student that was actually contemplating suicide already on campus.
Oh my God.
You know, see as a result of academic failure. At this point, this student was actually having about 7 carryovers.
Okay.
You know, and he came to me crying and was, lamenting how she has given up, and, it was just like, this is her last outburst. And with all glory to God, was able to pull her through, over repeated follow-up and
she was able to pick up.
At the end of the day, she came, with her testimony back as well.
All right.
So I think at the end of the day, it's actually a call for us, for students to actually know their stand and to know their person.
Yeah, because this, like you just mentioned, this is what students has to do, because if you know yourself and you're confident, you have that loquacious temerity to confront whosoever that brings whatever. Exactly. That you know that this is who you are and you cannot score this, and you follow it to the later.
Exactly.
I think a lot of persons are listening and they're watching what we are doing here. We are talking about a student who really committed suicide just for failing a course, and it was said that she was victimized by a lecturer who vowed not to see her to pass the result. But we just want to take a short break. When we come back, we go to Kogi State. Stay tuned.
the lines across the ocean, to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Every day our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
nobody's ambition is what's the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
you human trafficker.
Honorable they are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
We're glad to have you back on the show. It's called Press Roundtable. Now let's go to Kogi State. The Kogi State Police Command has rescued 5 victims kidnapped earlier at the Are Shuare area of Ajakuta, Kogi Central. They were said to have been rescued in Dogo Forest near Ajakuta in Kogi Central by the police led by SP Yusuf Hansi in collaboration with the local vigilantes on Thursday. In a statement issued in the early hours of Friday, the State Police Public Relations Officer SP William Aya stated that the victims were kidnapped on the 17th day of May 2024 while on transit along the Ajakuta-Dogo Road. And he said the operatives, while on a rescue mission, combed the bush and invaded the kidnappers' camp. The hoodlums engaged the team in a gun duel. However, due to the superior firepower of the team, the hoodlums abandoned their victims and fled. All the victims were rescued unhurt, he added. In another development, following a tip-off that some armed hoodlums drove in an unregistered golden Kolomozo Camry, went to the Ojoda area, Ankwa, started shooting sporadically. In the process, one Iliasu Abubakar was shot dead, while one other sustained bullet wound on his right chest. Immediately, the Divisional Police Officer of Ankwa Division, CHP Chikamnele Amaralam, swung into action and mobilized his team to the scene and engaged the hoodlums, which forced them to flee and abandon one AK-47 rifle with breech number 354951 and 2 live ammunition. Well, as you can see them, they are 5 in number, and we're talking about the Kogi State, how the security operatives rescued 5 kidnapped victims in the forest, because I think they intensified their actions confronting them immediately, and that is how they fled and rescued these people. I want to commend them.
Yeah.
That's my own. My take is I just want to commend them, so that if you get the news that your citizens are being kidnapped, you just have to hasten up. A prompt response. You just have to, hasten up and make sure that something is being done to rescue those people, because nobody would have known what they would have faced, either for ransom or their kidney or their past will be all scattered, and So I think my own is that I'm just commending them. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Happiness must have fled. And you wouldn't say you were asked to fight a crime at that point, but those persons were very much intentional and were asked to combat, the criminals. This is following them and trailing them to the forest first with the kidnapped victims, and rescuing the victims all completely unhurt, with the kidnappers fleeing, based off seeing the fact that they have been overpowered. It's a very commendable one, and we have actually talked about this earlier in most of our narratives, where we address issues of insecurity, that where the police are very much willing and intentional to combat any crime, it is very much certain that they will achieve the desired result or record a level of progress and success in that operation. So this is another show of the fact that once the will,
and the readiness is there,
to carry out their duties, there is every high chance and tendency that there is going to be a positive result and outcome in it.
All right. Okay. And now let's look at what is happening in FCT. The police command in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has detained one of its officers over an accidental discharge that led to the death of one Oyebuchi Anene in Abuja. The police public relations officer in the FCT, SP Josephine Ade, said this in a statement on Friday in Abuja. Ade said the tragic and unprecedented incident happened in the Bizan area of Abuja on Wednesday at about 9:45 p.m. She said the Commissioner of Police in charge of the FCT, Mr. Bennett Igwe, has ordered an investigation into the incident. Ada said that the CP had directed the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department to commence an immediate and discreet investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of that police officer. She said the CP expressed its profound and heartfelt condolences to the bereaved family and the public at large. Now, we're talking about police detained co-op over accidental discharge. This is police versus police, So, do you think they should do better? Because this is like police against police. But I think it's accidental discharge. Do you think they can do better on this?
Yes, I think this actually brings us back to the point where we, in one of our discussions, we actually talk about a periodic retraining, a periodic screening, orientation, and psychological, subjecting these personnel to psychological evaluations. We did talk about these things, and it is part of a healthy system to carry out these practices, especially for a very delicate and very responsive and cardinal agency as the police force. For their personnel and their operatives. You don't leave a person in the force with such humongous tasks in terms of securing life and properties, and then they still have their personal life, they have their personal issues and all that. You don't just subject them and leave them to the training that was given ab initio at the onset of their engagement of their recruitment. 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, there is no major system overhaul of in terms of retraining and reevaluation, reorientation of your personnel, to keep them in check and to keep them updated with global best practices. When these things are not done, we keep having issues of this nature as a common occurrence. It can be considered as part of the work hazard. Even in construction site and all that, where they know too well that work hazards are possible and impending accidents that could certainly and definitely occur. They put every measures and intentionality to see that it is breached or it is curtailed by putting measures, practices and mechanisms in place to put them on check. So this is actually what every security agency, security outfit in the country should consider. That is actually my opinion as regards to professionalism in the police or security force of the nation. So there should be measures put in place to bring them on board, to bring them up to date, to also, why these things are also going on. You might see a need where, these persons are no longer fit, to be at the front line.
Yes.
These people are no longer fit to be entrusted with rifles, even if you might think, okay, it might not be appropriate to dismiss them entirely. There are a lot of other aspects in the police force that is not all about combating, in the crime scene or going out and being shouldered with responsibilities of, handling the rifle. So when these things are done, they will be able to identify these things, and issues as this will be curtailed. We don't have a reputation of, a disgraceful occurrence, because that, to the best of my knowledge, that is the best I can actually put up now, because it's disgraceful, when, viewed from the eyes of the international community, who viewed from a global perspective, when, the world is, taking a different form, and we're still talking about, incidents as this. It's pathetic to hear of our police and security outfit.
Well, all right. Well, I think they are watching, and but the police, all the security agencies, this is really what they should do, in order to check what is happening there. And also, for as long as they are there to protect lives and property, they also need to check them very well. Those who are carrying such an assignment, because it's humongous, it's not quite an easy task. Lives is involved. So for as long as life is involved, they have to make a scrutiny of them from time to time. So that's the much we can take on today's program. We want to thank you, because at 9 o'clock we shall be joining, then we shall be going to the newsroom for global news. So you can stay connected on ATN Socials. You can follow and like our page. We are on Twitter on Atlantic TV Net. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube on Atlantic Television Network. We're also on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We have Atlantic TV Network 1. You can watch us live on our website on Atlantic Network TV. We have our app on YouTube, on Facebook, Atlantic Television Network. This is ATM Press Roundtable. We always provide the right narrative in news narration.